Alright, welcome to my presentation for TE 405. I've chosen the standard of horizontal and vertical bar graphs for 3rd grade math. So let's get started. What is a bar graph? A bar graph is a graph drawn using rectangular bars to show how large each value is. The bars can be either horizontal or vertical. So what is horizontal and vertical, you may ask? Well, horizontal is a line that runs from left to right across the page. It comes from the word horizon. So if you look over here at the right, you see I've created a horizontal bar graph and that the lines go from left to right. Next is vertical. Vertical bar graph is a graph when the lines go straight up and down. So once again, if you look at the bar graph that I've created over here on the right, the rectangular bars are going up and down. So how do we read the data in a bar graph? You start off with the chart name or the graph name. So for our example, the title is Number of Chips Sold. The next thing you're going to do is look at the items that are in your bar graph. So we're going to look here at the bottom one at our vertical graph. And our items are chips. They're different kinds. We have barbecue, sour cream, Cool Ranch, nacho cheese. And then you're going to look at the number of the items that you have. So we start off with 2 and we go all the way up to 15. Now our chart has 16, but that is just so we have a higher number to where the graph goes. So let's answer some questions here. How many barbecue chips were sold on Tuesday? So if we go right here to our horizontal bar graph, we look and see which one first is barbecue, which is right here. The next that we're going to do is we're going to see that there's 3 different rectangles. Each one is a different day. We want to know how many barbecue chips were sold on Tuesday. So Tuesday's color, when we look at our key down here, is going to be this light blue. So when we go to barbecue and we go to the light blue, we see that there were 15 chips sold on Tuesday for barbecue. The next question, number 2. Which chips has the same amount sold more than once? So let's look at our vertical bar graph down here. We want to see how many chips were sold more than once. So if the same amount were sold more than once, that means that the bar or the rectangle is going to be at the exact same level. So if we're looking at this vertical bar graph down here, we're going to notice that nacho cheese has the same amount twice, and that barbecue has the same amount twice. The next question is, how many sour cream chips were sold all together? Now, I'm going to use the vertical bar graph because I feel like they're easier to read than the horizontal bar graph. So the first number we have here on Monday is 15 chips. And you want to note that it says all together. All together means you're going to add. So on Tuesday, there was 4 chips sold. And on Wednesday, there were only 2 sour cream chips sold. And so like we said, all together means add. So 5 and 4 is 9. 9 and 2 is going to be 11. 1 and 1 is 2. So our total for how many sour cream chips were sold altogether is 21. So now I want you to try and make your own bar graph. It can be either a horizontal or a vertical graph. Now keep in mind, I said it can be a horizontal or a vertical graph. So remember that horizon is horizontal, left to right, vertical is up and down. Also, we want to look at our items that we have for our bar graph. We have the title of our graph, the items in our graph, and the number of the items in our graph. So I'll give you a quick second to put a graph together, whether it is horizontal or a vertical. Alright, so this is the graph that I've put together. I decided to use a vertical graph, once again because I feel like they're just easier to read than the horizontal graphs. Now we are going to do another horizontal graph. However, I just want to show you the vertical. So with the data given, I've put the title, the different types of data we have, and the amount over here. We see that Toyota has 20, Chevy has 15, Acura has 10, and BMW has 15. So let's answer some questions on the graphs that we just created. We want to know how many Toyotas were sold. Well, this should be an easy question because you needed to know that data in order to create the bar graph. So over here, we can look at our horizontal because I've created a horizontal and a vertical bar graph because you may have done a horizontal, however, I did a vertical. So let's look at it. How many Toyotas were sold? Let's look at Toyota and go all the way over to where it ends, and the answer is 20. So 20 Toyotas were sold. Which car sold the most? If you look at your data in your bar graph, you'll notice that you're wanting to see which rectangular bar or data set is the most. So this one we can look at our vertical bar graph. We want to see which one of these bars is the highest. And when we go and see the highest data point, which is 20, we see that the answer is Toyota. So which car sold the most last week? Toyota. Next question, number 3, asks, how many more BMWs than Acuras were sold? So what we're going to do is we can go to our horizontal here. The BMWs had 15 and Acuras had 10. Now when you read this question, how many more BMWs than Acuras were sold? That means we're going to subtract. So if BMW had 15 and Acura had 10, and we want to know how many more BMWs were sold than Acuras, we're going to say 15, take away 10, which is 5. So the answer to number 3, how many more BMWs than Acuras were sold, is 5. Number 4, which 2 cars sold the same amount last week? So we're going to look at our bar graph, and once again we can look at our horizontal because this one, in this case, it is kind of easier. So if we look at our numbers, we see that Toyota doesn't have anything matching up to it. When we go to our next one, Chevy, it does have something matching up to it, which is BMW. So Chevy and BMW sold the same amount of cars last week. So moving on to our exit ticket, we're just going to see what you learned from this lesson. So on your email or whatever you might want to do, or on our Padlet page in the questions, put what is the difference between a horizontal bar graph and a vertical bar graph. Remember, horizontal, horizon, vertical, this way. So just tell me what the difference is. And like I said, the course of study from Alex, we are doing 3rd grade math, which is the 18th skill set. And as you can read it, is to draw a scaled picture graph and a scaled bar graph to represent a data set with several categories.